Good morning, everybody. It's been a very long, busy, and I think successful summer for Reform UK. We didn't go to the south of France this year. We launched our 6-week crime campaign. And I was very, very pleased that we got some senior figures from the world of policing, the prison service, to come and join the party, to set up a task force so we can get legislation planned and ready in time. What was also interesting was there were many in Westminster, in politics and the media, who thought, well, crime's not really a problem because some surveys say that crime is falling. Well, that's certainly not how most people in the country feel. And certainly our advocacy of zero tolerance, particularly for areas like shoplifting, really caught the mood of the country. And plus our insistence on stop and search, which interestingly is popular across all sections of society, regardless whether you're on the left, the centre, or the right of politics. Sadly, at the same time, free speech has been genuinely under attack, and I think the final implementation of what was well-intentioned legislation, frankly, is quite chilling. And that allows the public now to believe that we're living in a world of two-tier policing and sentencing. And indeed, if you just look at it, you know, if you're a childminder who says something deeply intolerant and wrong, but only once, ever, it's a long prison sentence. And even if you're a foreign national arriving at Heathrow Airport, well, if you've said something the authorities don't like, you may well be arrested by 5 armed officers. And if you don't think it's two-tier, well, have a think about this. On Friday, there were some very explicit threats posted on TikTok for me to be killed. Pretty sick in the light of what happened to Charlie Kirk, but quite explicit. Been told this morning by the Metropolitan Police that those posts don't meet the threshold for further action. So I think we are, you know, without doubt, living in a two-tier country. It is extraordinary. The rest of the summer was dominated for us by the weekly by-elections that happen every Thursday, and those that study these things will see we're winning more and more seats and doing particularly well against the Labour Party in some parts of the country where they've been strong ever since the end of the First World War. And of course, this all culminated in our conference in Birmingham 2 weeks ago, which was upbeat, optimistic, full of energy, and the party is in good shape. But I did say, there were 2 things I said in particular at the conference. The first was that I thought this government and the British economy were in far deeper trouble than most people realised, and that I did not believe the government would last a full 4 years, thinking myself that a general election by 2027 was entirely possible. It seems to me, given events of the last week, it could happen even more quickly than that, I don't know. But I also admitted that our big weakness, and the question that we struggle to answer, is how can a team of people who've never been in government think about going into government? How can a team of people who, if we get elected, on a genuinely radical agenda for change, how are we going to deal with some of the barriers that we might face? They might come from elements of the civil service. They might come from the House of Lords. They might come from teaching unions. How is a team of inexperienced people going to be prepared to go into government? Well, some of you may think even talking about winning the next election, about government, is pie in the sky. But frankly, having led the opinion polls for over 100 opinion polls, the only responsible thing that we can do is to prepare. And that's why I announced at conference we'd be setting up a department preparing for government. And that is the responsible thing that we're going to do. And that process starts today when we take on somebody who will head up that department, find talent, find people with experience in the civil service, in government, and help us get ready for what will be a monumental task. Radical change in a country like this is not easy, but it's necessary, because if it's not done, many of us believe this country will be well and truly sunk. So the man that has been given the job, this enormous responsibility, is a Member of Parliament for East Wiltshire. His name is Danny Kruger, and he joins me, I hope he does, on the stage now.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much indeed, Nigel. Good to see you all. I have been variously a member, an activist, an employee of the Conservative Party for over 20 years. And I have many friends in the party, many good and decent people, which is why it is so personally painful for me to be doing what I'm doing today. There have been moments when I've been very proud to belong to the Tory party. In 2010, I was inspired by the big society, by schools reform and welfare reform. I was thrilled by Brexit and by what Boris Johnson pulled off in 2019. But those were exceptions to the rule. The rule of our time in office was failure. Bigger government, social decline, low wages, high taxes, and less of what ordinary people actually wanted. And now our country is entering the most profound set of crises in my lifetime, under a government even worse, far worse, than the one it replaced. Crisis in the economy, crisis at the border, crisis in our streets, crisis in our military, crisis for young people. Yes, we are still a great country, and there are good reasons that so many migrants want to come here. But there are also reasons so many entrepreneurs and young people want to leave. Britain is not broken, but it is badly damaged. And so in this crisis, something's got to give. I hoped after our defeat last year that the Conservative Party would learn the obvious lesson, that the old ways don't work, that centrism is not enough, that real change is needed. But no. We've had a year of stasis and drift and the sham unity that comes from not doing anything bold or difficult or controversial. And the result is in the polls. And those lost voters aren't coming back. And every day more and more people are joining them in deserting the party that has failed. And so this is my tragic conclusion. The Conservative Party is over. Over as a national party. Over as the principal opposition to the left. But I am not despondent, because conservatism is not over. It's never been needed more, and actually it's never been more vibrant. Because the failure of the Conservative Party has created space for an alternative. The flame is passing from one torch to another. The old torch, once so great, is guttering, spluttering, held weakly in uncertain hands. But the new torch is already alight, already brighter than the one it is replacing, held aloft in firm and confident hands. And while the torch is different, the flame is the same. The things we Conservatives all believe in: respect for the law, respect for our traditions, personal liberty, national sovereignty, free markets, belief in family, community, country, the trinity of obligations that give us identity and security and purpose. And if we strengthen these things, and the economy which supports them, and the armed forces which defend them, we can weather the storms that are coming, and we can make our country even greater. So I am honoured to have been asked by Nigel to work with him, with Zia Youssef, with Richard Tice and our other colleagues to help reform prepare for government. This is a team with the vision, the energy and the ideas that we need. And so let me say a word about the work that we're going to do. It's going to be difficult because we are planning change on a scale that the system has not seen since the modern civil service was created in the 19th century. And this work is going to be hard, and it will be opposed by the system. And that's why we need to be radical, taking on the vested interests and the incumbents who always defend the status quo. But here's an important thing. Reform UK is a radical force, but not a revolutionary one. Our mission is not just to overthrow the current system. It is to restore the system that we need: limited government, accountable power, a strong society, a state that works in the interests of the people. Radical restoration. That is the reform the country needs. Now, we'll be making a lot of announcements in the months ahead about what we want to do in government and how we'll get there, because this is going to be an open process. The whole point is that no group of politicians has all the answers. And so what I want to say to people watching is this: if you are serious about saving our country, about changing our economy and our society and our government itself, if you have expertise or experience or ideas, and that's everyone, we want your help. If you work in Whitehall or the public sector or the military and you want to give us confidential advice, get in touch. I say this to everyone. If you've had enough of waiting for politicians to fix our problems, if you don't trust Westminster, well, join the club. Literally, join us. Join Reform UK and see what you can do for your country. So let me finish with this. We on the right of politics face a choice: to embrace the change that is happening or to go down to a deserved demise. To follow the flame of conservatism as it passes to a new torch, or to stand still and get darker and colder and more pointless. To be conservative is not to worship the ashes of defunct institutions. It is to preserve the fire that gives our country its life. The new custodian of that fire, the best hope we have, maybe our last hope, and I fervently hope the next Prime Minister, is Nigel Farage. I am proud to follow him, and I hope others will do the same, because Britain needs reform. Thank you.
Well done, Danny. Yes. Okay, thank you very much indeed, Danny. We have a list of questions, as is our tradition, and we're going to begin with Chris Mason from the BBC.
Thank you both. Chris Mason from BBC News. Nigel Farage, are you really in an insurgency? Oh, start again now, I'm in possession of a microphone. Are you really an insurgency, or any port in a storm for grumpy Conservatives who think their old party is finished? And Danny Kruger, is the Conservative Party really over? What would you say to former colleagues who will say that you're a turncoat who's given up when the going gets tough? And I appreciate defecting is a big and difficult thing for any politician to do. And just one final question, Mr Farage, if I may. Where did the money come from for the house your partner bought in Clacton?
Okay, two questions there. I'll deal with that after Danny and I have given the answers to this. We're not here as any port in a storm for Conservatives who think they've got a better chance of winning their seat next time round. There are two things. There are two criteria. Number one is, what do these individuals stand for? But more importantly, what are they going to give? What is the benefit to us of them joining? And they're the only ones I have any interest in. In this particular case, Danny Kruger is aligned with us, whether it's on the Brexit vote, whether it's on the Windsor framework, whether it's on ECHR. You know, politically, we're very, very aligned indeed. And he's just taken on a mammoth piece of work, and he's better qualified to do it than any of the rest of us that are in the senior levels of leadership in this party at the moment.
Thank you. So, Chris, this is a big risk for me. And, in fact, my seat is not particularly a Reform target, although Reform are doing well, even in East Wiltshire at the moment. So I don't accept that I'm simply jumping ship to save my skin. In fact, I'm taking a very significant personal risk here. The fact is that I feel nothing changes when the governments change at the moment, and I think that's where the country are too. And what I hoped after the last election is that my party, the Conservatives, would recognise how profound the challenge that they faced is. They haven't done so. And my view now is that the best hope for conservatism and for the country is Nigel's Reform Party. But yes, it is going to be a major challenge, and Nigel's asked me to do a very, very difficult job, so I don't think I'm scuttling off an easy life with this move.
No, that's certainly true. Chris, in answer to your question, my partner is a private individual. She purchased a house in the constituency. I was pleased that she did. I didn't particularly want my name down, living in the constituency for obvious security reasons. Lots of questions were asked, which is why I went last week to an independent KC, tax expert. I've got all the judgment. The KYC checks were done. The money was legal. The purchase was legitimate. The right level of stamp duty was paid. There have been no laws of any kind broken whatsoever. As for the source of the money, I've said previously what I've said, and I'm not going to say any more.